What up, guys? Welcome to another Wednesday and another live stream. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to Sultan. Also, let me give a shout out to Sebastian Villatoro, Alexander Franco, my good friend Jose Antonio Olivares, Oli, Otto Mayen. And in this live stream, I'm going to talk about this plugin that I've had for like 3 weeks, and this is the first week that I started using it, and is this thing called iZotope Neutron. I have never used it before, but it was kind of interesting using it. So this is kind of like the track that I'm going to be working on. It's a track that I finished a long time ago, and I'm going to remix it with this plugin and see what happens, right? So the idea behind this plugin named Neutron is that you have this thing also called replay, and you add it to the tracks that you want mixed, and then you set the visual mixer of Neutron. And I'm probably sure that you guys already know this stuff, but yeah. So then you ask the mix assistant, and let me see which ones. So you ask the mix assistant to help you out with mixing the track, and we're gonna set like cue points here, and then what you do is mix assistant, then I'm gonna prioritize this wet ARP, and then you begin listening, right? So after this has been listened to by this plugin, it's supposed to like balance it out volume wise. So I'm not gonna bore you guys, but that's kind of like the idea. The focus track, accept, and now this is how it looks, and this is how it's supposed to sound, right? So I think that one of the interesting things is that it takes away your bias as a producer, but at the same time, as a music producer, you know what elements are important in your track. So I think that that's something that you should, for sure, consider, right? So yeah, I think that it's a good thing. It's a good plugin, but I wasn't like entirely sure. So one thing that I did is I prepared this other like project when I already added like the relay to all the tracks and everything and had it listened to. So don't save. But the thing about it, right, is that it's I don't know. To me, it was like out of balance again because I know the track and I know the elements are important, but it gives me a good idea on like where everything is starting. So it's kind of fun. So this is kind of like the finalized product of this mix down, and let me bring you to where like the meat and potatoes of the track are, so we can have a listen. So in my mind, the kind of like the 30. Let me bring this down a little bit. So in my mind, like the 30 snare and this other clean snare are way too high in the mix, and let's see how when like the clap comes in. So they're like overpowering, I think, the mix. And let's go over here when like the horns and everything come in. That sounds good, but that needs to be tucked in the mix. So even though it gives you like a good idea, a good reference, I think that you still have to do your work. It's not 100% accurate, but the great thing is that that's where things are going. So it's like mind blowing. So let me show you guys. So like the other thing that I did, and I think that the best thing for it, right, is to do it in this way. Let me show you guys what I did in this other project. It's mixed to one, and I think this is the best way to do it, hands down. If you're gonna use it, if you're not too sure on your ears and your mixing, and you need a second opinion, I think this is great. So the one thing that I did, right, is I separated again, all the groups, but I went and I added a mix assistant to every group, and I ran the process for the entire track, and that seemed to be better when it came down to like leveling the volume. The other thing that I did for each one of the groups is that I added the other part of Neutron, which is this. It's kind of like its own console, but I used the mix assistant to see how this group could be shaped, you know, and treating it as its own stem. So this is the sculpture for vocals, and then you have the equalizer compressor that is suggesting based on what you told it to like do, right? So if you want to use the mix assistant, you go here to track enhance, and then I wanted, you know, warmer vocals and then medium intensity regarding like the EQing and all this other stuff. And I think it did a really good job. You know, obviously you still have to tweak it by ear because you know what's important for the track, but I think that overall the experience is not bad at all. I mean, I would say if you're not sure on what you're doing, I think you should probably use this plugin. So my good friend Ollie, he has been one of my best friends for a long time. He lives in Spain. Shout out to him. Good guy, solid guy. So that's what I did. So I went back and I did this for all the vocals, like the groups. Then I did the low end by itself, horns. But for the low end, going back to the low end, sorry, I actually treated each vocal, each track, sorry, with its own individual Neutron set of plugins. So for instance, like this first kick is a tap kick, so I did not do anything to it. But then for the kick, the chunky kick, right, it added a sculpture, equalizer again, exciter, a compressor. Kind of interesting to see the treatment that it chose to do. Not gonna lie, I think that maybe because I'm a little bit like more old school or like whatever, I went back in and I tweaked things, but it sounds good enough, right? So after I did that for every single group, the last piece of the puzzle that I did is actually I added a new visual mixer at the end, and I went ahead and asked it to mix, asked it to mix based on after the plugin, the Neutron plugin, right? And that seemed to do a way better job of mixing this track than it did when I asked it to just mix the entire track by itself. So this is something that you might want to consider. Let me show you guys. I guess this is the final mix, right? See, that needs to come down in the mix. And this right here needs to come up. It needs to shine a little bit more, right? But you already have a good idea on like how to like balance everything out. And I think that as they progress, this plugin is gonna be, when you just like hit a button and everything is gonna be like even like spread out and everything. So it's kind of amazing to see what technology is doing. I think it sounds decent. So that's it for this live stream. And yeah, guys, so this Sunday I'm gonna publish a new video that is gonna be about, you know, like treating this room. You know, even though it's a well-treated room, I think it needs a little bit more treatment. So yeah, tune in and to see what I do. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. See ya.